Maybe I should also. I will. Okay.
It's all right. We
also need.
edit all these bits out. Don't worry.
Yeah, cool. No, you can have this part too. I'll move so you have better light. Also, and see if my dog is going to come and annoy
Oh,
us.
what dog?
I have a mutt.
Oh, he or she? He?
He he's a
That's
complete mutt.
lovely.
He's adopted from Spain. He is yeah. Unfortunately, we have the best dog sitter, but he is sick for his back, so I'm having a bit of a logistical nightmare at the moment with it's like having a baby. I mean, he's
Yes.
chill when he's at home, but he's needs walking and all that stuff.
Yeah, yeah,
So
yeah. We have a German Shepherd. He's very young. He's very energetic. So I totally get it. And he
yeah.
does know chill sometimes in between walks. But when he thinks it's time for a walk, sometimes
Oh.
2 hours early, or he'll tell you.
Oh wow, yeah. Okay, that's a good thing with having a senior dog. He's he's pretty chill.
Yeah. Um,
Cool.
right. I
I'm
really
ready.
appreciate you taking the time. I've been looking forward to chatting with you for months, I'll be honest. And everyone knows who I am right now. I don't really want to do my intro because I hate doing these things. Please, can you tell us who you are and what you do?
Okay. So my name is Digge Zetterberg. I'm the Director of Content and Communications at Frontify. Yeah. Should I also maybe talk about what Frontify does? Maybe that's
Please. I know
everyone.
it inside out, but other people
You
might
know
not
what
yet.
it is. Good, good, good. So Frontify is basically a software for marketers, combining brand guidelines, DAM, templates, and everything in one single source of truth to make lives easier for everyone in need of the right brand assets. It's basically us.
I lost my mouse there to unmute myself. It's lovely. Thank you.
Yeah.
I'm a big fan of Frontify, obviously.
Nice.
But then
It
I'm
is a nice
biased.
product.
It's
People,
lovely.
people, I think that's probably why we've been as successful because I mean, Frontify's been around for 10 years. And I think that's kind of the number one feedback we get. Like people really enjoy like how easy it is to use. And I think that's kind of also for any software part of why you become successful is if it's delightful to use and if it's easy to use, you're going to get that adaption and people are actually going to use it because if it's too clunky or you're not like enjoying it, then people are not going to use it and then it's just a waste of money. So I think people really, it's a very brand friendly tool. So I guess we really know our audience as well and people really enjoy using it, which is nice.
Just a couple of things to echo there. I started working with creative departments, which is very much your, ideal target market and your core user base years ago. And something that not everyone really understands fundamentally is creatives are wired in a certain way. Therefore, they are the exact polar opposite. They're allergic to spreadsheets, admin, and ad tech. So they won't use it. It's that simple. They'll hate it. They won't use it. So that's really, really key anyway. Even like more so than normal user interface, ease of use, and like regular user adoption, which is something I was talking about yesterday separately. But and then so I came across Frontify, I think almost by accident, years before I started working with it for a client, and I was such a big fan because of everything you say, even though I'm not like the target user. I saw it all immediately. It was lovely. I'm still a big fan. Now, a personal one or a work-related one, if you prefer. What's one thing everyone should know about you but probably doesn't? I like this sort of fun fact one that comes up.
Oh wow, fun fact. The thing is, I think I don't hide stuff, so I don't think there's anything that people don't know. If they ever talk to me, I'm pretty open book. So I mean, I do like to have fun. And I guess I think that's a very like huge element of like what I want work to be as well. I think I want to be able to have fun with people I work with. And I guess that's kind of what what made me go into, because I used to work in the agency space before joining Frontify, and I think that's maybe what attracted me to advertising in the first place, because it's a serious business, but it's also fun. Like, you're supposed to be creative, and so I think it's that perfect mix of like silly and business, and I think I really like that. It's not a fun fact about me, but I think it kind of says something about maybe who I am, at least.
I like that. Thank you. And then, other than Frontify, you're not allowed to use this one. What's your favorite Apple tool and why?
Ooh, I mean, I used to love Slack. Like, when Slack was new, I was just like, oh my God, I love Slack so much. Now, of course, it's gone a bit overboard and we use Slack too much, so stuff just gets lost. Since then, I think I've actually started to love Fellow more. So we use Fellow all the time for note-taking and agenda. So it's kind of like this plugin that you use in meetings, and you basically have the agenda on the side, and you can also take notes and have like action points and follow-up. So we use Fellow a lot. And for someone with as shitty memory as I have, it's very good, because I can then write down my, action points and like, oh yeah. So Fellow, I
Ooh,
would say
that's a
it's
new one to me.
very oh, you have to try it.
Yeah, I'm Googling it
Very, it's
right now.
very easy, straightforward, but it's very good.
Is it, so I've used Otter AI for transcribing meetings, which kind of does a little summary at the end. I actually only use it for interviews and stopped using it now because there's a different one. But is it much more kind of action driven than that?
Yeah, because I mean, I don't think it can take notes for you. It probably can, I don't know, but it's more kind of like assigning action points after a meeting, and like also like putting the agenda in place up front and everything. So it's like, it's very simple tool, but I think it's very helpful. And also because you have it in the meeting directly. So
Nice. I'll be using that for sure. I love that question as well because I always have something new that I've never heard of
yeah,
that. That's amazing.
yeah,
Nice.
yeah. I mean, we also use Gong for we used Gong for a long time for it's like an AI note taker, but
Okay.
it's also a sales tool,
Okay.
which is also very good. I really like
Nice.
Gong too.
Have a look at that one as well properly. I don't want to go down that rabbit hole while we're talking.
That's not this. Yeah,
I've just got them open on Chrome and then I'll look at them later
yeah.
properly. Lovely. Would you, so to me, what I tend to work on is very much internal transformation projects, and to me, Frontify is absolutely exactly that. It's an internal transformation type tool that helps anyone I've worked with previously, like LV last year, go from no real process internally or a process that does work, does depend on who's using it, to something much more sensible, much more streamlined, depending on what different modules they use. Can you talk us through an example of a project that went really well, why, or didn't go well, why?
At Frontify, you mean? Then probably as an example.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I think maybe not like a specific project, but what we do see is when people have, like, LV is a good example, but I think also we earlier this year we had like a user story, really nice video that we made together with Uber, who rolled out. We actually started working with Uber through one of like another customer of ours, which was then acquired by Uber. And so I think Uber then kind of like, they actually took on Frontify through this acquisition. And what we see is, when they're a good example of that when they kind of translate all, like, 'cause most companies have their guidelines in either like a custom built solution, or they have like 10,000 different PDFs, and it's Google Drive and like share, like all these mess basically of everything. And then once they kind of manage to set the foundation and build this kind of brand portal that is so easy to use and so easy to kind of digest for people, whether you're just someone who needs to download like an image, or whether you're the one who's actually needing to update everything, when you manage to build that out and roll that out, I think then is when you really see that transformation, because it changes how people work, because it saves people so much time. It's so much easier. It's so much kind of more, you just like eliminate a lot of the boring, busy work, and it just makes people's lives easier. And I think it's also playing into this whole kind of bigger shift in the industry, where brands are not something that the brand team can control, but rather it's very much something that everyone is part of building. And you know, with user generated content, and like brands need to be very, very flexible today. And it's kind of gone from brand policing to brand enablement. And when people manage to do that, like when companies manage to kind of build a foundation for that, that is, I think, we really see that changes things. And I think that's a repeated success story that we see. And on the kind of flip side of that, I think sometimes like when it doesn't work out is when we see that people come in and they realize they need something like this, but they never invest the time maybe in setting it up properly, or just like actually populating with a thing. So it's a bit like of a poor experience. Like you might have a few assets and it's just not really fully built out. Then you miss out that whole enablement part, and then it kind of dies. Then you don't get the adoption that you want. So I think it's kind of really feeding that kind of creative hunger that is out there, because people do want these assets. And I think that's one of the feedback that our customers are also getting from their users, is like, well, we want more content, we want like more assets, people actually want this stuff, because that makes them, you know, more able to create brand related, you know, things with it. And so I think that's kind of the difference between successful and failure in the Frontify space, is kind of if you manage to really enable people or not. So
I just thought of something there as you were talking about all the user-generated content. That was something that I love when I come across either a product or a project where I can, like, here's the brief, here's what we wanted to do, and then go, how are you? Do it, fantastic, done. What I really love is then when you can have a conversation with one of the team or someone else, and you can go, oh, this thing that you're talking about, you know, that we can do it in here, and it's not too much of a stretch. And that was exactly what happened last year with user-generated content. Kind of, there was like a real easy scenario where we could actually build out a new area of the brand portal, or of the Frontify portal, to do exactly that, help the brand ambassadors kind of almost self-serve with the bits that were just quite a manual admin heavy process for the team until then. Now, I'm the first to admit I'm terrible at social media. I don't have TikTok. I'm not a big Instagrammer. But even I can see all the trends that are happening over the last few years. Now, to me, there's been a huge explosion in that whole ambassador, influencer, social media usage for brands to really, in the last few years. Has that had any kind of impact on the product, on Frontify the product at all?
Well, I mean, I guess, I mean, I think it was very like, also if you go back to why Frontify was founded in the first place, so Roger, our founder and CEO, he was a front-end developer, and he was working at a digital agency, and he felt that, you know, handover from front-end or design to front-end wasn't ideal. And I think anyone who's ever worked in an agency will recognize that problem. Because assets and information was sitting in all these different places. So he originally built it as kind of like a collaboration tool, and to create like a single source of truth for all of these materials. It then grew into like guidelines, because of course we all know with PDF guidelines that you never know the latest, like what's the last version, and etc. And since then it's also grown into like a fully fledged DAM, and where we also kind of noticed that our strength very much sits in also being able to combine guidelines and DAM, because like you can have a DAM, which is essentially a box. But if you don't give people kind of the context to your content, you can't fully enable them. And I think back when Frontify was founded 10 years ago, this wasn't as big of a maybe issue with this, like how are people gonna interact with all of the assets. But of course, since then, that has just grown exponentially, and especially with like with the user generated content, influencers, like all these, you know, people who are kind of taking things and making something out of that, which is amazing, and a creativity that we want to celebrate. But for brands, that also means that they need to give more guidance. It's not about, again, it's not about policing, but it's about maybe helping people understand like how, you know, they can use it, and then but then kind of giving over some of the control. So it's kind of having or the creativity, so it's kind of maintaining that creativity and control balance, but without controlling too much, but really kind of just helping. So I don't know if that answers your question, but that's kind of
No, it does. Thank you.
and so yeah, good.
It was more professional curiosity than anything else, because it's not really a trend that I've kind of kept up with too much, but even I can't be too blind to it. Last couple of questions, if you don't mind. Is there any kind of specific advice that you can think of for anyone out there about to embark on that digital roller coaster, I always call it, because it is like any kind of digital project, is always a roller coaster for even the most seasoned professionals. Is there any particular advice that you can think of for anyone at the beginning of that journey?
Well, I mean, I think what I would say, I think, is I think you have to be very clear with kind of what problems you're trying to solve, and also maybe realize that like not always is like, you know, a tool the solution to all problems. It's sometimes it's also process and lack of internal communication. But I think that being very kind of clear with like, okay, this is the problems I like want to solve. And then when you're in the process of like maybe like first identifying like that, and then on the next level, then like, okay, what are our needs based on that? And then probably also being very how should I phrase that? But I think it's what am I trying to explain here? I think also maybe realizing like who's going to use, you know, if you make a decision like identifying problem, kind of identifying how you can solve that problem, but then also maybe who's going to like use that and how what that process is going to look like. So I think there's like a few levels and a few like boxes you need to tick along the way. And I think again, you have to like maybe have a good idea of how you want to roll that out. And there again, I think the usability is going to be super crucial, because in the end, like you may think that a tool is going to solve something, but if people can't use it, or if onboarding is going to take you like a year, then that's most likely not a good idea. So I think there's like a few elements that you have to kind of weigh into any decision, which is like, you know, the users, the problems you're trying to solve, the onboarding time, the complexity. And I think now also more than ever, like any kind of digitalization has kind of moved from like, oh, we need to digital, I can't even pronounce that word, but digitize, is that the word?
Yeah.
We need to digitize everything. And now we're kind of like, okay, we need our tool stack to fit together. So I think brands and companies in general are moving towards building ecosystems. And I think that is also like huge. How does this fit into the bigger kind of puzzle that is our company and how we operate? So it's I think it's a pretty like, it's quite complex, but I think you have to have that kind of map in like you have to map that out, like what problems, you know, what tools we use, who are the users, how does this fit into our like bigger system, because that's also like I think has increasingly become like business critical for any, you know, like any tool. It can't be like a it can't be a one-off thing that you use isolated. It needs to be connected to like all of your other tools. And it needs to be like, we need to have an integration with Figma because that's how designers like design their work. And then they have to like, I mean, and I think every software needs to function that way, essentially.
Yeah.
That kind of went off in several different.
This is, yeah, but to me, that's awesome because that's two really big topics that are really important in my line of work anyway. So that's great for me. You've talked about the fact that, yeah, I think a lot of providers that I've come across or even worked for in the past have had this issue. They come in or they're brought in, and then the client assumes that it's almost a magic bullet, which is a really fair assumption because that's, you know, sometimes almost how it's not solved, but you know, it's not even how it's presented, it's just a perception. We have this need, here's this tool that fits our need, done, right? And it's never that simple ever, especially for a bigger, more complex tool that's really integral to your day-to-day work. It's much more about what's the problem you're trying to solve, which is exactly what you mentioned, who is going to be using it, and therefore change management and adoption and onboarding, which is something that the supplier normally will almost always need the client to deal with, and the client will always expect the supplier to just magically do that, which doesn't work in that kind of relationship normally. And then the other topic that you talked about is something that's more and more obvious at the moment, I think, and coming up as a bigger inevitability rather than a trend. There's this whole acronym about IPaaS, I think, Integrated Platforms as a Service, but it's exactly that. It's building this ecosystem. It's not just who's in the tech stack, it's how that all talks to one another. And it definitely seems to be much more moving away from this one integrates with this one, we'll put the two of them in touch, we'll get our developers to link them up, and much more about almost like a click and drag model where you start taking all of that and physically click and dragging it to a much faster kind of turnaround. But that's a little more, there's more to it than that, but that's definitely the way that that's starting to move anyway. I really, really, really appreciate your time today. I can talk about this stuff forever, but you know, respectful of schedules and stuff.
There's so much more to talk about. But no, really nice talking to you too.
Lovely. Let me just stop the recording.